This here says that it's not year after year under full Kroenke ownership with Champions League football on offer. This is the first summer you can judge. Caicedo will come too.
What are you chatting about first summer I can judge? I've seen this in the Champions League 20 times and never, ever won it. One final, one semi-final. I don't know why everyone's so gassed about Champions League. Do you think we're going to win it, Zach? Real talk. Do you think Arsenal will go and win the Champions League? They won't. So why are you so happy about being in it?
But in terms of his
they won't do what's required in the transfer market to go and actually have a go at it.
In terms of his comment, though, he says under full Kroenke ownership. You haven't been in the Champions League under full Kroenke ownership, have you?
No, 2018, I think they paid the debt off. Well, they assigned the debt to themselves rather than paying the bank.
Yeah.
So they wiped it off and assigned it to themselves.
Yeah. So you haven't seen them you haven't seen Arsenal in the Champions League with Arteta under full Kroenke ownership yet. So
no, but I've seen us in the Europa League getting pammed by Olympiacos, our ex-manager with Villarreal and Sporting Lisbon from the halfway line. Yeah. Well, and I'm supposed to believe that this manager is going to go and take on Real Madrid. Okay, mate. And Bayern Munich and that. Do me a favour. You can't even beat Sporting Lisbon. Yeah, or Villarreal on our own ground. No goals scored in 2 legs against Villarreal. Wow. And I'm supposed to believe that now we're going into the Champions League. It's the Holy Grail. And he's the man to guide us to the glory. He can't even guide us to a League Cup. Yeah, 3 years in a row, he's won nothing. He shouldn't even be here.
You're still really pulling on the Arteta should be sacked conversation.
PSG just sacked their manager for winning the league.
Right.
They just sacked their manager. He won the league. With PSG fans crying. Oh, you're negative. No, they wanted him sacked. Yeah, Ancelotti's lucky he's still got a job. Yeah, because 90% of their fans want him sacked. And he's won 6 trophies, Terry, in 2 years. Yeah, all this rubbish about, oh, yeah, why don't you want him sacked and all of this. Terry, he has not won a trophy for 3 years in a row. The last time we won a trophy was 4 FA Cups ago. Yeah. So why is he here?
I think though, there's a few examples of this though. So Ancelotti not being sacked this year, he's got more credit in the bank for his history and what he's won in this stint at Real Madrid. But if they go and win the league next year and do well in the Champions League again and win a couple of more trophies, then it's the right decision. Equally, West Ham fans wanted Moyes sacked earlier on this year. He's won their first European trophy in 58 years. Napoli fans broke into their manager's car, stole his steering wheel, and said, "You'll get it back if you quit your job."
Oh, how toxic! How toxic! Yeah. Did all their fans go on Twitter and threaten to kill him and abuse and all of that?
But he stayed, and he won their first league title in 20 plus years,
and then quit.
Yeah, well, he's quit, but then they sent him back. They actually sent him his steering wheel back, which is very beautiful and nice. But the point is,
and his CDs, they nicked his CDs.
Hindsight is really lucrative, Lee. And if West Ham would have sacked David Moyes months ago, if Napoli would have sacked their manager 2 years ago, they may not have just.
Terry, I get what you're saying. Who are the 3 most successful teams in the last 20 years in Europe and domestically combined?
Well, I know who they are.
The 3 most successful: Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, Chelsea. In the last 20 years, they've had 17 managers each. Now add up how many trophies they've won. So it's almost like they understand that they're paid employees that are replaceable. Yes, there's examples of David Moyes and that guy, etc., etc. But Terry, they're paid employees. They're disposable. If you're not doing a job and you're not fit for purpose anymore.
So I understand all of that, Lee. The difference is, though, is that Arsenal don't have now and have never had what those 3 teams had during their times of real success.
Standards.
Now, let me be serious for a minute. Because Chelsea, we've had this debate before and proven it before. Chelsea, since FFP came in and the new TV money came in, their level of success has shrunk in compared to the first 8, 9, 10 years that Roman owned them, especially when you look at challenging for league titles, which they haven't done now for going on 7 years. They won a Champions League in that period, but 7 years without a league title challenge. Sacking managers stopped working there when the money was more evenly spread in the Premier League. The one difference with Real Madrid over the last 20 odd years and Bayern Munich compared to Arsenal is that those clubs have a financial monopoly within their nation. Barring Real Madrid, they have Barcelona next to them. There's a financial monopoly that they have domestically, and they're 2 of the biggest clubs in the world, and they're bigger than Arsenal overall. So the examples you
give... How comes Arsenal have spent more than them then, Terry, since 2008?
Please let me finish. Please let me finish my point. So I'm at a point where I understand where you're coming from, but just sacking managers alone isn't what creates the winning mentality. It is the standards of the football club. It is the quality of player that you have, and also it's about where your process has started from. And I know you hate that word, and you're absolutely right. Arsenal have made a fouled low since 2008. I totally get and understand that, but a lot of that isn't on Mikel Arteta because it was different ownership, different manager, different people running your football club who started your spiral downwards. Now, the difference is at Bayern Munich and Real Madrid. Now, maybe there's a period in time of their history I'm unfamiliar with. I don't know of a time where Real Madrid or Bayern Munich fell so far from grace like Arsenal did, where they went 20 years without winning a league title, and they ended up being mid-table for 2 or 3, 4 years. I don't remember that happening to their clubs. So they've never fallen so far to have to be rebuilt from to give that the new people.
Why is that, do you think?
No, so listen, but I understand. This is where me and you clash sometimes, but we shouldn't. You're right. If Arsenal would have maintained their standards from 2004, you'd never have been in the position that Mikel Arteta took over from. But that isn't Mikel Arteta's fault. At the end of the day, if you quit YouTube and you go back to work for any business, you're working in sales, and you walk into an office that for 10 years have been run like shit, and it's on the ground, and you've got to build it up from nothing again. You, though, can't be held responsible for 10 years of failure. You can only be...
I'll turn it around inside 2 weeks and it'll be rocking again.
Lee. But
Come on, I've done it before.
Lee, but you get my point. You are not accountable.
I get your point, Terry, but at the same time, you're saying from the club that Arteta picks up and this and that. Mate, we finished 5th the season he got the job. The season before, we finished 5th. 1 point off of 4th. Yeah. Now everyone's jumping for joy. 3.5 seasons later, or 4 full seasons. Obviously, he wasn't there. Emery was there for 13 games. Right. Then Freddie came in. Right. But 4 years later, we have only just surpassed Unai Emery's only full season in points tally. Right. Well, that's on the manager then. So hold on. Unai Emery. Hold on. Unai Emery had the golden boot striker up front. This guy couldn't get a tune out of him. He had Lacazette, Unai Emery. In that season, I'm not a GA merchant, but in that season, we got to the Europa League final. That season, Aubameyang won the golden boot, and between them, they got 72 GA. This guy killed them both off. I'm not saying they were the answer, but they weren't the whole problem. He was a part of the problem, the manager. Now you look at some of the signings, Terry. Runnison, Cedric. We signed Cedric when he was injured on loan, and he was still injured when we gave him a 4-year deal. What's that all about? On 80 grand a week. Yeah. Then we've signed Sambi Lokonga. We've signed Vieira. We've signed Rob Holden up to a new deal. We've signed Reece Nelson up to a new deal. We've signed Eddie Nketiah up to a new deal. Why? These are all on the manager. We've just given Reece 100 grand a week for 589 minutes played last season. What the hell is going on here? After giving Eddie Nketiah 100 grand a week the season before for scoring 5 goals that took us from 4th to 5th. Where's the accountability, Terry? Yeah, and this is my problem with it. It's all well and good saying we've dropped down to 8th. He took us to 8th, which is why the standards are on the floor because, it's a rebuilding. It's progress. No, how about win something, mate? Cool, you won the FA Cup. Since then, he's ripped the whole squad to shreds and won nothing with his own players. Surely that's got to have some accountability, right?
So I agree. Let me just respond to that. So I understand where you're coming from, and I do think accountability now needs to start being applied massively to Mikel Arteta. But sometimes in life, you have to go backwards before you go forward. And my coach used to say this to us in kickboxing and karate training. Turns out he stole it from Bruce Lee. I didn't know this, where he basically said, you might think you know everything right now, but if you come in here with a glass half full, there's only so much of my knowledge you can take in. So you've got to empty it and pretend you know nothing. You've got to start again. We've got to break you right back down to basics. Fighters go through this. Sometimes fighters have to reconfigure how they fight. It might be because of injury. It might be because they've been worked out. It might be because suddenly they've got 2 or 3 new competitors who just have a style that beats their style. So they have to go back to the drawing board. And when they do that, they sometimes go backwards before they move forward because they've got to get used to a new way of doing things. There is no one size fits all when it comes to building up a football club. I think your point will be true if you go from where you were this season of being in a title race, being one of the best teams in the league all year. If next year you drop off from that and win no trophies again, collapse in the Champions League after a big summer, which it looks like you're going to have, then I think your points hold water. The thing is, though, if you go to another level next year, and let's say you win the league, let's say you go to another level and you challenge for the Prem again, even closer this time, and you win the FA Cup and you get to the semis of the Champions League, suddenly then this 4 or 5 year process of you saying, we went backwards first, we signed some poor players as well, we did all these things wrong, where's the accountability? Suddenly you were going to start to see the fruits of this labor. What Arsenal believe, and I just think it's going to be a thing about timing, is they had to strip everything back to basics and start all over again. Because, by the way, of what your point that you're right about, is that for 15 odd years, maybe a little bit less than that, your club's standards dropped so low, you were destroyed. The problem is, I think this is the only difference is, I think what you don't see or what you don't appreciate is that fixing it isn't as simple as a team that's won 3 league titles on the bounce, has one bad year, sacks a manager, new kite comes in, and they go back to winning titles again. You are talking about, and all the clubs you use as examples, the irony is Chelsea, because since Chelsea's running of their club has been poor by their own fans' words for the last 6 or 7 years, they're dropping to the levels that you complained about Arsenal being at.
Not at all. Not at all. Absolute rubbish.
Chelsea.
How many trophies have Chelsea won in 6 years? Last 6, 7 years?
They've
won the Europa League. They've won the Champions League. They've won the League Cup, an FA Cup.
And their fans, and their fan, and what you didn't listen to is their fans aren't happy. They haven't challenged for a league title in 6 to 7 seasons now. And most Chelsea fans that come on my show, please let me finish my points. Most Chelsea fans who come on my show say, even the ones that loved winning the FA Cup, the Champions League, were like, it papered over cracks at our club. That's coming from Chelsea fans' mouths. The point I'm making is this. When you use Real Madrid and Bayern as examples, they've never been in the position of a club that Mikel Arteta took over from, that Edu took over from. And I think from your point of view, you neglect or lack up the understanding of how much work it goes into rebuilding a football club when there's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 teams at the time that are already ahead of you, because you've got to rebuild. And I think that Arteta's done a very good job of getting you to this point. Now, where me and you are on the same page is that from this season moving forward, there are no more excuses. There is no more rebuild.
There will be.
Oh, no, but okay. But in terms of, I'm talking, forget everyone else for a minute, Lee. Just me and you talk man to man. You won't see me, even as a neutral to this, defend him in the way I have done in previous years, because he's built a team now that is capable of competing. And if you spend another 250 million this year, there are no more excuses. It's challenge for the major honors, win trophies, or you're a fake, or you're failing.
Anyway.
That's it. So, no,
that's what it should be anyway. And the thing is, you said about comparing to Bayern and Real Madrid. I do that deliberately because that's what we smashed the stadium down for. Yeah, to be like them. Even in 2012, when Gazidis was doing an interview, he said, we're going to compete with Bayern Munich and Real Madrid, the top teams in Europe. So we can go back to 2004 when we got the funding. Yeah, and we can go back to 2012 when Gazidis said it. Peter Hillwood said it in 2004. Gazidis said it in 2012. Well, I'm now 11 years further down from 2012, and I am still waiting.
Where are those guys now?
Gazidis just won a league title in Milan last season.
Yeah, so they're not at Arsenal then?
No.
So, but this is my point to you. I want Man United.
Peter Hillwood's up in the gods, mate. He's dead.
Okay. So again, so yeah, God rest your soul. You can't hold anybody at Arsenal now in a senior position accountable for what their predecessors said and did or didn't do, because that's not on them.
No, I get that, but the standards of that football club and the reason behind us moving stadium was to challenge with the best in Europe. So when I've got Vinay Venkatesham getting a promotion off of the back of doing absolutely nothing, and he's now the CEO, for what? How are you getting a pay rise? This is a guy that signed a deal with somebody posing to be a top person for a Chinese car company. The person was a fraudster, and he sat with them signing the photo. I could get the photo for you, Terry. It's out there on the internet. He got a pay rise and promoted off of the back of that. What is going on here? You've then got Edu. Yeah, Edu was an invincible. Invincible. He gets it. He did back then. He don't anymore. Why? It's all about keeping your job, isn't it? Keep the 2 million, because no other club's going to employ him. Yeah, let's be real. When he got the job, I think it was the Brazilian national guy up hierarchy or something said, "Good luck with him, mate."
Can I ask you a question?